Okay, so if you remember in the previous video, I told you about conio H having a third method of using it. What is that third method, you may ask? Well, that's your challenge. This is the challenge. I want you, let me just make a comment area. We'll talk about comments later. I want you to make something like this. A hashboard. Something like this. Whenever the player hits a key, that the hashboard goes that way. So, like if they hit the left arrow, that row disappears. If they hit the right arrow, the row reappears. If they hit the up arrow, that row disappears. And if they hit the bottom arrow, that row comes back. So you'll need to keep redrawing it. The way you'll do this is slash double system CLS. That's how you do this, and we'll make it into a game. What the player must do is that they must match the coordinates. So like something like 3 for this row, so how many the 3 for how many columns there are, 5 for how many rows there are, and they have to match it. And there's a timer counting down. For them to get it perfect. And they can move all the time. They can do stuff while the timer's counting down. So you'll have to find a way of doing that. Now this puzzle might sound, and then if they get it correct, let's say they do 3. Let's say they actually got it correct. 3, 3, 5. Then the game's going to reset and generate a new random numbers, and the time is going to get shorter. So if it was 100 before, for example, it'll be like 90 or 80 or something. And it keeps going down until it reaches, the time keeps going down until it reaches 5 seconds. And the numbers keep getting bigger, like 12:43. Well, not 12:43, that's a little too big. 10. And they have like 5 seconds to do it. And if they fail, then they lose the game. Now, this might sound complicated, but remember, this is just using everything we've learned. Nothing in this code project is new to you. Everything we've learned in the previous course, or previous sections. So I want you, if you can do it, pause the video and try to do this puzzle yourself. There we go. Now's your chance to pause it. Okay, so have you tried? I know it's very difficult, but I'll tell you one thing. I have never done this before. I've never done this project before, but I know how to do it. So let's begin. First off, we need a new thing called game. So void game. We'll just make a simple game right now. So main is not going to do anything. It's just going to call a game. Okay. This game will have 3 loops, but first we need 3 functions. Void logic for the game logic. Void draw to draw the game. Void something else. Logic is going to handle the logic of the game. Void inputs. And then we need a new variable up here called bool game over equals false. Next we'll need a while loop. While game over equals false. We want to have three things. We want to use these functions. Draw, logic, draw, input, logic. What is this going to be doing? Well, first off, before doing anything, we need to include a windows.h, and here we want to put sleep 100 seconds, let's say. So what's this doing? Well, it's going to call draw first, wait for it to finish, call input, wait for that to finish, call logic, and then wait for that to finish. So now let's get on to the actual functions, because this part's done. Functions. Part done. Draw. That's the first function. Now, this is actually the hardest function to create, so it uses a lot of things. Did you know you can actually nest for loops? Yeah, it's weird, but you should have known by now because for loops can be nested. You at least should have experimented with it, so yeah, you still know that. So, we'll begin. We want to, as I said, we want to have something like a hash, something like a hash grid. So how are we going to do this? We need a for loop to iterate through every column. Now this is a very easy example as it's only hashes. So we need a for loop to iterate through every column. So let's make two new variables. Int height equals, let's start with 5. Int width equals 5. So for the draw, we want to start with a for loop, which says int I equals 0. I is less than height I plus plus. So now it'll iterate through the height. And before all this, you want to use system CLS. The reason we use CLS up here, the flip. Stop. CLS. Okay, there. The reason we use CLS up here is because it keeps clearing the screen, so the draw won't be like, so it won't be like this. You see, we want to avoid that at all costs. That's the bad stuff. We want to avoid that. Instead, it'll just be one thing, because before we start printing the next thing, we'll clear this and then print it. Clear, and it'll be like that. It'll keep clearing and printing. Now, this is a very bad approach, but so far that's the only method I've found. So, if you find a better method, feel free to leave it down in the comments. For the next bit, we want to now print this, because we're just printing this right now. So guess what? For int j equals 0, j is less than width, j plus plus. We need to use a nested for loop. The reason we use j here and not I is because if we use I, we're actually going to reference this variable, and everything will go wrong. So, so we don't want that. Next, we want to see out a hash. And don't use it at del, or else it's going to go wrong. Next, we want to... Next afterwards, once we finish that, we want to see out and del. That way, it will go to the next line. So actually, we can check it now. We can see it now. And it should work. You can see that. you can see a hash grid, 5 by 5. The next thing is we want to make it so that a player can increase the hash grid by whatever. Increase the hash grid. So we want to use the logic, the input, because now we call draw, and now we want to use the input. So I guess you could guess what about happen if keyboard hits, because we want to check if the player hits the keyboard. Switch by get it. Switch by. Now, obviously, you can't use the arrow key as it's not going to work. So we'll have to use a substitute. For my example, I'll use WASD. So case W break. Case A break. Case S insert on. Yeah, there we go. Case S break. Case D break. There you go. Now we put in the logic. Here we want the height to increase, we want the height to decrease, but we don't want it to decrease if it's at 1. So if height is greater than 1, so if it's not 1, height minus minus. And here, S, we want to have a maximum of 30 that the height can go up to, or 20. If height is less than 20, height plus plus. So now if we play again, you can see that we can increase the height and then decrease the height. And then I can increase the height up to 20, and then it doesn't allow me. Now you might notice how it's very choppy. And there's a lot of delay. That's because of this, and the reason is this: it's calling draw, it draws, it's calling then input, and then you have a chance to put it in. But if you were to type something, it's going to stay in the memory, and then when you get to sleep, it waits, it comes back, so you have to wait a full 100 milliseconds. The solution is to decrease it, but you don't want to decrease it too far, or else you get this. That's fine for this example. You can see how that's more responsive, and you can even hold down the button. So you can see it's more responsive. Next we want to make the 4 more variables. Int, what is it? Required height equals 0. Int required width 0. And then we need one more int. Int time left equals 0. We need one last thing. Hash include time for randomness. Now first off, we want to print these things. So here, after we've printed the entire grid, we'll do a cout and L, cout and L, and then we'll make this. Cout required length, cout your Let me think for a second. Your length. Your how well? Let me. Dimensions. We want to say something like width by height. No. And if you want the player to know, you can do this. You can make width There we go. Width. You can try this. You can do this. Width. Width. I know it's very this tutorial is very choppy, but because I'm doing this first time, I didn't have a template. Width, height. So now if we play it next, you'll notice this. Your dimension is 5 width, 5 height. And if I can increase it. Speaking of which, let's get this width value working. It's just simple copy and paste on both of these. Except this is now width. And this is width minus minus. And then here we want it to be less than 20. So you can only go up to 20. Height plus plus. Width. Width. So you can see this. Now we can increase the width up to 20 and down to 1. And then we can boost it. We can boost the height. So you can see that we've got a working game right now. We can now do stuff. Again, if you're confused, just leave your questions in the comments. I might come answer them. Now, the last step is actually going to be done in the next video because I don't want to make this too long. So the next coding video will include the actual game system. So if you like this, press the like button. Subscribe to me if you want to see more coding videos. Or if you're more into gaming videos, I have those too. The next video will not be a gaming video. It will be a coding video finishing this project. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.